Yeah, thank you. So for me, I never planned to do this, what I'm doing. And so for me, I was passionate about social impact. I wanted to do something which was meaningful. And while I was running my business into the IT sector, I realized that I was volunteering and doing stuff. But at a point, I reached where I understood how climate change is such a serious cause. And for the lifetime that I will be there on this planet, I can see it overlaps with a very critical time, which decides if we are able to do something enough and in time, it decides whether humanity will exist on this planet or not. I don't see any reason for me to be doing what I was doing can be more important than working on this cause. I never studied environment. I never studied sustainability as an academic thing. I didn't have any expertise in this, and I feel I don't have expertise yet. I'm still learning as I work, but one thing was sure, that the time I spent, the energy that I spent has to be done something meaningful. And when I thought about it from a social impact point of view also, I understood that all the development that we had for decades can just go like this if we are not fixing this. And we see that happening. We are actually going back in a lot of those social development parameters because of what is happening right now. So yeah, that led me to start some work from where I was in Kolkata. I started looking at the cause of air pollution. That led me to more understanding of environmental issues, climate change, and ultimately I ended up getting an opportunity to work with an environmental organization. And that last 5 years has been really a lot of learning for me working on this. So whatever I learned was this thing. For me, earlier a cleanup drive would make the most impactful thing. As I started to learn more, I understood what really makes impact. So that has led me to working in this sector, yes. Yes, so I'll just give you a background on why I chose to work on this as part of my role in the previous organization, I worked on a restoration project in the Sundarbans. It was a 160 hectares restoration project where we planted 2 million mangroves. I was held kind of responsible for that project from my organization's end, and we worked with partners in Sundarbans who actually implemented the project together. And what I realized, the impact was more immediate. And when we talk about Sundarbans, all of the things that we are discussing right now here is still very theoretical for us, but that is very that's a daily scenario for them. They are living that experience. What we are thinking will happen is already happening for them, right? And I saw that all the things that I am doing, all the mitigation efforts that we are thinking, all of thing may make sense after a few decades or may not make any sense. But when we work on restoration and everything, it immediately benefits the community because there is some livelihood generated, there is some resilience created for them. Even if the project doesn't succeed in a very positive parameter, there is some employment, something which is generated for them. And that really made a lot of sense at that point in time. But then I realized with philanthropic support or CSR money, the scale is very limited. And the interventions, as nature-based intervention, you cannot be short-term. You can just plant and get out of that. It requires a long-term intervention, which can only happen through private capital. And that's where I thought that working in NBS or working with carbon finance can give me that opportunity to create much larger impact. If I'm working with philanthropic money, maybe I will do 2 million mangroves every year, but here I can think of much more bigger scale. We can go into multi-million this thing with one community, and we can scale it up, we can sustain it, and there can be more impact, more sustainable impact. We all know the challenges right now, and when we talk about agriculture, it's a very important issue from an Indian context because a large part of our economy still depends on agriculture. We are an agrarian economy, and the vulnerability of India as a nation is very high. And when we talk about agriculture, what attracted me specifically is the organization that I'm currently working on for carbon finance. They have found out a very sustainable model. So there is a huge gap in finance still now with restoration or NBS. A lot of the money you see right now still public money. The private money is still lagging. It's a very small percentage. But what we figured out is that there are because of all the ESG conversations and all, companies have started to realize that if they need to exist as a company in future, they need to also build resilience in their supply chains. And there are so many companies who depend on the agri value chain for their companies to survive. Now, what we are trying to see is that for a company, it will make a lot of sense if they start investing in the farmers, in their supply chain to create resilience for them, because that is where their entire supply chain is linked. If there's, suppose it's a company which is selling juice. If there are no fruits or the fruits supply chain gets disrupted, the costs go high, their bottom line gets affected, right? So it makes change for them to work with the farmers that they are working and make them resilient. And when you look at the resilience of the farmers, you have to work on a lot of parameters. If the soil quality is not ensured, if the water availability is not there, if the community livelihood is not there, they will move out of farming. There's no farmers, there's no farming, right? So if the physical climate risk associated with that region, all of those factors you have to look at. And that cannot just happen with philanthropic money, because that will come in for a short time. It cannot be enough. That's why I think this carbon finance, if done with the right objective, with the right design, it can create a win-win for that company, for the farmers, for the community, and for everyone. So I see that finance being an enabler, because it comes with some value and win-win for everyone, and it is there for a longer time. So yes, I see that potential there. So, see, it is very complex for not only farmers, but all of us right now. So, a lot of us who are working in this domain may be understanding what is an additionality, what is permanence, and all of these things. And these are very complex terms for a lot of people. So, we have to really, when we are working with the community, with the farmers, we have to simplify and see how we can bring them to design. For them, what is important is their livelihood. What is important for them is their resilience and this thing. So when you build a project, and another thing is technology can help a lot in this process. So what is required is, instead of going directly to the farmers, you should organize them. There are FPOs there are farmer producer companies now. You talk to them and you bring them together. You talk to the village panchayats and work with them. What we have seen from our experience right now is that the private land alone, because we don't want to transform the lands into just like planting trees for carbon farming. I don't believe that is a solution. You have to have both, and there are a lot of common land available in the village panchayats also. When you combine the private lands and the common land together, the projects are more viable from a carbon point of view also, but also it creates resilience for the community and for the farmers together, because it works together well, is what we have seen as a design. Now for doing that, if you bring the village committees together, the FPOs together, and design a project where there is a proper benefit sharing for them to be engaged for a long term, that design will work better. Technology can help in a lot of ways, because doing this project and bringing them from the ground to a point where it becomes feasible requires a lot of investment, which will not come in from private capital always, because that requires certain support from philanthropy, that requires certain support from other hybrid finances to make that project viable. And I think that together, so there is finance component, there is technology component, there is a component where policy can also help, awareness can also help, and all of this together I think can work very well for achieving what you are referring to. But at this point, we are, I think, still in a nascent stage on this, but at the same time I see that happening, because there is a lot of work happening in this space. So I'm very excited about how this moves, and I'm very hopeful that it will create certain models which are fair for the community, because that is also very important, that communities have been exploited on many such ways, and that should not happen. That's where role of civil society and government becomes important, is to ensure that the communities are not exploited, and even nature, we don't do more harm in the process of trying to do this, what we say that we are trying to do good and all of those things. So I think when you design a project, you should keep the community and the biodiversity at the center of the project, and then carbon and finance can be an enabler to enhance that, and not the other way around. See, it cannot be either or is what my conclusion has been, and I can be wrong, because I think if there is no alignment for the private capital to invest in that, that capital will come for the short term. But if there is a proper alignment for everyone, then it will be a long term this thing. And I am very worried of anything which is short term right now, because I don't think the short term interventions work. So if we create something which is long term and which is a win-win, and there is a balance for everyone, there is an interest, there is a business interest for the private person to invest, but it is not exploitatory. That balance has to be there. And if the intent is right with that design, if you go, I think that is going to work better for everyone. And when companies start thinking from the point of what they are going to gain from that investment, rather see what they are going to lose if they don't invest, that's where I think that decision will go further. So we also, as whatever role we are playing in an organization, we have to also think, when we try to move the sustainability agenda, we talk in the right language. Because if I'm talking to someone who is sitting with the decision on finance, I have to talk in the language that they understand. If I'm talking to an HR, I have to talk in the language that they understand. And that is a way we can see. No company, they understand numbers, they understand what is good for their business. And if you can prove and make them understand, you can really build a sustainability agenda out of this thing. And that is the way I think it can sustain. So first thing, what I think is that to make any project in the nature space sustainable, the sustainability of that idea, the mindset in the organization, leadership at all levels, has to be first sustainable, because it has to be long term. Yeah, so what you said is absolutely correct. This happened. See, I have some experience right now working with some corporates on the CSR, and one fundamental problem I see, and I ask them this question, is that what are you doing in CSR? You know, most of them are not able to explain exactly what they are doing, because their efforts are very sporadic and very reactive in nature. So what I suggest is that this carbon finance or any other type of finance which can be more long term, and CSR which is more smaller amount. If you see, the whole CSR budget is also very, very negligible compared to the money that is required. It is negligible. What is like private sector, it would be around 30,000 crore in total, right? It is negligible for a country of size that we are. And some of it is spent on issues like still education and health. I think those are also very critical and very important. And we cannot think of moving that money out to completely in this. So coming back to your question, the model that I see is that if companies can see how their money can start a project or help a project become viable, and that can continue and strengthen with other forms of capital, I think that will be more interesting. They should take more risk with the CSR capital. For them, they should do those projects and see how they can support it from long term, from their own business interest, from their other forms of capital. I think that would have a much longer impact. In terms of the geographical inequality, I personally see that if a company who is based in something and has a certain supply chain, if they invest in something, it will be mostly for their social media and some nice this thing to look on their reports, but it will not have a long-term impact. So, and there are companies which have their supply chains integrated in different geographies. I think we have to look at that. And for very, very vulnerable communities, we need a mix of both philanthropy and private capital and government interventions together. That's my process. I can be definitely wrong about it, yes.